What if one small, expensive meal could change the course of someone's life forever? This is Carl Johnson, 17 years old, working the late shift washing dishes for minimum wage, saving every spare cent for one simple treat. A burger and fries he's been waiting 3 days to afford. Tonight, two strangers in the corner stumble into the diner soaked to the bone, a frail white couple who look like they belong in a different zip code. Carl watches them fumble through empty pockets as their embarrassment grows. Without really thinking, he walks up, slides his tray across, and tells them the meal is theirs. He thinks he's doing something small. He has no idea he's stepping into a test that's been planned for days. The man's blue eyes are not only grateful, they're calculating. The woman's leather portfolio hides papers that will later carry Carl's name. Two people in disguise, a hidden plan, and one act of kindness that will ripple in ways he can't imagine. But before any of that happens, let's go back and see how he got to this moment, and what drew the watchers to him in the first place. Where are you watching from? Comment your city before the story unfolds. The alarm beside Carl's bed doesn't need electricity. His body wakes before it rings. The Johnson row house on Maple has sagging steps and a porch light that stutters. But inside, a small framed photo of Carl with his grandmother, Miss Ruby, sits on a crooked mantel. Miss Ruby, 73 and tired, breathes with the soft hiss of an oxygen machine in the corner. Carl learned early that worry couldn't feed either of them. He learned to hustle. He walks to Riverside Diner before the morning rush, pulls on an apron, and sinks into the familiar rhythm. Plates clatter, fries sizzle, coffee refills. Dishes used to feel like punishment. Now they're just a means. He scrubs, stacks, and sweats, counting every dollar until the tip jar looks like a fortune to him. At school, where some kids drift between classes, Carl studies in the library and helps classmates with calculus problems. He's the kid teachers praise quietly, but whose family checks can't cover tuition brochures. He's saving for a small independence. The meal he's promised himself after 3 days of skipping snacks and skipping bus fares home. The diner is a patchwork of lives. Late-night couples nursing coffee, truckers claiming the corner stools, nurses on graveyard shifts, and the regulars who bring the same gentle arguments about sports. But recently something else has been hiding in the background. Eyes that watch more closely than customers do. For 3 days, two strangers have been moving through the neighborhood, appearing at gas stations and bus stops, asking about the young dishwashers, the kid who tutors, the one who always hands the extra sandwich to an elderly neighbor. Their inquiries aren't casual. Someone is running a quiet background check. That evening, the rain hammering the diner windows sounds angrier than usual. Carl finishes his shift and grabs his tray. He's been dreaming about this meal, the warm bun, the fries, the first real bite without guilt. As he reaches for it, something in the corner catches his eye. Table 6, the place where couples celebrate birthdays and where regulars meet for quiet conversation, holds two figures who don't belong. A well-dressed elderly man and his wife, their hair plastered to their faces, their designer coat obviously out of place in this greasy spoon. The woman's hand dives into her purse again and again with panic. The man pats every pocket as if the thing that's gone might pop out of nowhere. They keep whispering, voices sharp with confusion. Sandy, the veteran waitress who's been here 20 years, approaches politely, the sign of a problem the diner can't fix with a coffee refill. "Ma'am, did you lose something?" she asks. The man's pale blue eyes meet Sandy's with a tired shame. "It's our wallet," the woman says. "It must have fallen out when we left the car." Her voice is small and brittle. Everyone hears it. Big Mike, the owner who runs the diner like a tight ship, pads behind the counter, weighing compassion against survival. In this business, every free meal is someone else's gas bill, someone else's rent. He can't simply say yes. Carl watches. The burger he carried to the counter feels heavy now with a different meaning. A reward and a responsibility. His hand tightens around the cold paper of the tray. 1,000 small choices blink through his mind. The bus fare he sacrificed. Miss Ruby's insulin copay. The college brochures he hides between his socks. For him, the burger is a rare taste of choice. For them, a lost wallet is humiliation spread across the diner table. The elderly man, Harold, searches his coat pockets with more desperation. He pulls out an antique watch and fans it like it hides the missing cash. The woman, Margaret, clutches a leather folder so tight the edges crease. For a moment, Carl catches a glimpse of a gold-embossed logo on one of the papers. A symbol with a circular crest that rings like something he should recognize. But he doesn't. He only sees the curve of the woman's hand and the look in her eyes. He sees shame and fatigue. Without thinking, he crosses the diner and slides his tray across the table. "This one's on me," he says simply. Silence. The woman's breath catches. The man's blue eyes sharpen not with gratitude, but with an unreadable glint. You shouldn't have, they protest, but their protest is weak, paper thin. Carl sits down without an invitation. He tells them he works here, that he was saving for this meal, that it's okay. A single act that means nothing and everything at the same time. Sandy brings fresh coffee. Big Mike, who's gruff in the kitchen, watches him with the same cautious surprise he reserves for storms that pass without breaking a window. The elderly man, Harold, reaches into his coat as though to offer something in return, but his hand closes on a thick roll of bills. He looks up at Carl and studies the kid's face. His labored patience, the quiet dignity in how he talks about school and community. "What's your last name, son?" Harold asks finally, voice steady but curious. Carl says, "Johnson," his family address, the name of his grandmother in the living room with her oxygen tank. Harold nods, almost ceremonious, and writes something on a plain napkin. Carl's name and address, as if the name itself were important enough to be a document. Outside the window, a tow truck rumbles to life. Inside, the couple rises, apologizes profusely, and, with stiff dignity, prepares to leave. Before they go, Harold leans in. "You did something not everyone would do," he says quietly. "Remember this night." They step into the rain. The Mercedes in the parking lot roars to life on the first try. As it disappears down the avenue, Carl sits back in his booth and watches the place where his meal sat, now cold. He feels the weight of what he did, but the true weight of the night won't land until later. For now, he goes home to Miss Ruby, lights off in the hallway, and the radio murmurs news about other people's fortunes and heartbreaks. Unseen by him, the couple drives through the city and into the glass towers of downtown, where calls are made. Crisp, efficient calls to assistants and lawyers. Harold folds his napkin with Carl's name into his wallet like a bookmark placed on a life he has decided to open. Back in the diner, Big Mike sets a fresh plate in front of Carl without a word. "You earned it," he says gruffly. Carl starts to eat, each bite tasting larger than the plate could explain. But 3 days of quiet questions, attentive observations, and a staged misfortune have already set in motion something enormous. A foundation with a gold crest that funds projects and a couple who evaluate hearts as carefully as balance sheets. They have been watching him. They are making a decision. 3 days pass. The city doesn't change, but something around Carl feels slightly off. At the diner, Sandy keeps telling him that a well-dressed man came asking about the kid who paid for someone's meal. He left a tip so large the staff couldn't believe it. But when Carl checks the register, the slip of paper with his name is missing. At home, Miss Ruby's cough has grown harsher. The oxygen machine wheezes with each breath, and their power bill lies unopened on the table. Carl hides it beneath his textbooks, the same way he hides his exhaustion under jokes at work. He doesn't realize that every small choice, every moment of kindness, is being watched from afar. Downtown, Harold and Margaret Weston, not just an old couple, but owners of Weston Foundation, a billion-dollar philanthropic trust, sit in their penthouse office overlooking the city. Harold's assistant slides a report across the desk. Subject, Carl Johnson. Inside are photos, background checks, school records. Harold taps the page where Carl's volunteer work is listed. Tutoring kids at the community center, helping repair neighbors' cars, organizing used book drives. "Heart first," Harold murmurs, even when it costs him. Margaret leans forward, her tone softer. "He reminds me of Daniel," she says quietly. The name of their only son who died 6 years ago in a car crash. Harold's jaw tightens. "That's why we test people like him," he answers, "to see if there are still Daniels left in the world." Back at the diner, Carl gets an offer he doesn't trust. A tall man in a tailored suit walks in one afternoon and leaves an envelope on the counter. No name, no sender, just a note. "You made an impression. Opportunity awaits. Come to 45th and Harbor, tomorrow at noon." Sandy reads it over his shoulder and shakes her head. "Sounds like a scam, kid." But Carl, curious and restless, goes anyway. The address leads him to Weston Motors, a luxury car dealership gleaming with glass and steel. He stands outside feeling smaller than ever. Inside, every surface reflects wealth. Marble floors, chrome accents, the scent of new leather. A receptionist greets him. "Mr. Johnson, Mr. Weston will see you now." For a moment, Carl thinks she's made a mistake. But when the door opens, Harold is there. No disguise this time, no trembling hands, no lost wallet. The same blue eyes now carry authority. "You found the place," Harold says warmly. "Come in." Carl's confusion spills out all at once. "You're the guy from the diner. What is this, a joke?" Harold smiles faintly. Not a joke, Carl, a lesson. I wanted to see what kind of man you are when no one's watching. He gestures toward a sleek office window overlooking the city skyline. My foundation runs programs for young people like you. Honest, selfless, capable. We're expanding. I could use someone who knows what real struggle looks like. He slides a folder across the desk. Inside, a scholarship offer, a job application, and a letter of recommendation signed by Harold himself. Carl stares at it, speechless. Why me? Harold leans back. Because in a world that sells kindness for views, you gave it freely. But before Carl can answer, Harold's assistant bursts into the room. Sir, there's been an emergency, she says breathlessly. Mrs. Weston? She collapsed. Hospital lights burn white and cold. Carl follows Harold through hallways that smell of antiseptic and fear. Margaret lies unconscious, her hand limp in Harold's grasp. The doctor's words are careful but heavy. A brain aneurysm, sudden and severe. Harold sits beside her, the strong businessman suddenly fragile. Carl doesn't know what to say. He just stays, silent for hours. Eventually, Harold speaks without looking up. She was the heart of everything. The tests, the dinners, the disguises, her idea. She believed the world still had goodness worth finding. Carl feels the sting behind his eyes. For the first time, he sees Harold not as a billionaire, but as a man holding the last piece of his soul. She was right, Carl says quietly. You just have to look in the right places. Harold chuckles weakly. She would have liked you, kid. The beeping monitors fade into background noise as Harold reaches into his pocket and pulls out the same leather wallet from the diner. Do you know why I left this? He asks. Carl shakes his head. It belonged to our son, Harold says, opening it slowly. Inside is an old photo of a young man with the same blue eyes. Daniel died helping a stranger on the freeway. No one even thanked him. We started these tests to see if there were more people like him. People who help without expecting reward. He places the wallet in Carl's hands. You passed. The night drags on at the hospital. Harold hasn't moved in hours. Outside, city lights flicker against the window glass, their reflections trembling on the polished floor. Carl stays by the doorway, unsure if he should speak or simply be there. Around midnight, a faint stir in the monitors makes Harold lift his head. Margaret's hand twitches once, her lips parting just enough for a whisper. He reminds me of Daniel. Harold leans closer, his voice breaking. I know, sweetheart. I know. Then the line goes flat. The silence that follows feels endless, just the soft hiss of oxygen escaping from a disconnected tube, and Harold's quiet, broken sobs. Carl lowers his head. Even though he barely knew her, he feels the loss deep in his chest. She was the heart behind everything. And now she's gone. But Harold, despite his grief, doesn't let go of the wallet still clutched in his hand. Slowly, he turns to Carl. Promise me something, he says hoarsely. Don't let this world make you hard. Keep being who you are. That's how people like her. Live on. Carl nods, unable to speak. The weight of the moment feels heavier than anything he's ever carried. Weeks pass. The city resumes its rhythm. Buses still roar, people still rush, life still moves. But something has changed inside Carl. He now works at the Weston Foundation, not as a charity case, but as one of its youngest outreach coordinators. Every morning, he walks into the same building where Harold once tested him. But now his photo hangs in the lobby alongside Margaret's, in memory of those who believed in goodness. He uses his salary to move Miss Ruby into a better apartment, pay her medical bills, and fund youth mentorship programs in his old neighborhood. Kids who used to see him as just another broke kid from the diner now call him Mr. Carl. One afternoon, while organizing files, he finds a letter sealed in an envelope marked For Carl Johnson. The handwriting is Harold's. Inside, you may never know how much light you brought into two strangers' final days. Margaret saw Daniel in you, and I saw hope. Keep building what we started. H.W. A folded check slips out. Not a fortune, but enough to change lives. Yet Carl doesn't cash it. Instead, he frames it under the photo of Margaret and Daniel. A reminder that wealth isn't money. It's what you leave behind in others. That night, standing on the same corner where he once found the wallet, Carl looks up at the skyline. The city that once swallowed him whole now seems to glow back, like it's watching. A homeless man across the street struggles to gather his belongings. Without thinking, Carl crosses the road, kneels, and helps him pick up a fallen jacket. He smiles, quietly leaving a small envelope in the man's hands. The man looks inside, a note that reads, Kindness is never wasted. Pass it on. The wind picks up, carrying the city's noise into the night. And for a fleeting moment, it feels like Margaret is still watching, somewhere beyond the neon haze, smiling at the legacy her kindness left behind. We never know who's watching, or whose life we're changing with a single act of good. Sometimes the richest people aren't the ones with money, but the ones who never stop giving, even when they have nothing left. Watch our previous video for another powerful true life story. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach the world. Kindness can outlive tragedy. When you give without expecting, the universe gives back in ways you never imagined.